Yo, ntar guys kita edit dulu. Oke, nice. Kita lihat langsung.
Already taken that one loss, while Quincy Crew at the time are now Sonic. Were flawless. Of course, NA only getting 2 slots to the major, so EG needed to get that win to force tiebreakers. Eventually did.
Waduh, ngelek ya.
And then, of course, still 180 drafts total to get through for us, I think. So still a lot of Dota ahead of, looking at getting eliminated. But, like you're saying, 2 teams that get eliminated, every match really does count here in best of 2 format.
Yeah. I mean, so I've had a lot of, I've been to, 5 or 6 TIs? And, how you start off, it matters a lot. Obviously, how you finish matters more. But I believe TI7, I lost the 6 first games. There was 1 team getting eliminated then, and we had to come back and win 5 games in a row, and that's not a good feeling. You really, if you get to win your first series, that's a huge boost, confidence in everything you've done. Because before TI here, right, teams they get here 2-3 weeks before and they start scrimming. And that is a big confidence boost to your drafts, everything you prepared. Because sometimes you get in and whatever you've been doing is not working, and you have to change it up. And if you don't change fast enough, you might already be down 6 games, and then upper bracket is gone, and you just have to pray for a lower bracket run.
Yep, of course, and having that second chance. I mean, we're just coming now from last chance qualifier.
Kostum baru anjir.
Seeing how big of a difference that can make. For some teams, unfortunately, not enough of a difference. For example, VP getting 2 chances and unfortunately not qualifying. But still, 2 chances is always could be better than the 1. And lots of Dota still to be played here. I like what you said. I think both of these 2 teams, of course, they're qualifying directly via points to this year's international. It's been a while since they played their last official. EG quite famously didn't play.
Maaf guys kalau nge-lag ya.
Of course, this tier
on di laptop ini.
Roster and now this TI roster
Streamingnya.
a little bit different than what they were fielding for the first 2 seasons, where they did have Jarek, right?
Kalau di komputer nggak nge-lag kali.
They didn't really get to play a lot of Dota, so it's all going to be
streaming.
What was working in scrims or your practices, is that going to be enough to carry you through? Are you going to have to kind of adjust on the fly? Plenty of games to do that now, right? Of course, with 1 extra team, but 1 extra team as well going home. So, yeah, I imagine the nerves can really start to get to you, especially if you're already starting to play for even just your tournament life this early.
Yeah, so a lot of conversations that can happen is someone suggests a hero or blah blah blah, and then you go, oh, but we didn't practice this, or we didn't blah 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 this, and that can be true, but there are other things too.
Arthur
OG in TI9, I think, they pulled out their IO, right? That basically won them every group stage game. And I don't
Arthur udah cukur kumis lagi.
That was basically Ana playing pubs in Australia with the Wisp, and then just the team having confidence in him saying all right, I want to play this hero, and they just pick it, and they went 14-2 in groups. So you have to have a balance here where if someone believes in something,
Ngelag lagi asli.
Yeah, and I imagine especially relevant for these two teams, it's where a lot of the experience of your captains is going to come in, right? Fata here for Sonics and Fly for Evil
Aneh
Genius.
namanya
Had
Sonic.
plenty of experience playing on a couple different rosters, but overall able to kind of combine a lot of their experience, a lot of their tenure in Dota, and trying to make sure that they can see their team to the best start here in groups and finding that balance of what's worked for us, trying to balance that kind of confidence. This is something perhaps you've had to do a bit yourself, right?
No, for sure. And I think, especially like these two teams they're not the type of team to just suddenly someone just goes Arkward and then they pick Arkward. And these are more teams that try like stick with what they've done, what they've practiced, both EG and Sonics. Like if you look at previous TIs with EG, every time they play, you can see a certain pattern in their draft where like they pick what they think is good. Obviously, they can change the pattern if they feel like things are not working out, but they don't usually go that crazy. Like if you look at the unpicked heroes they showed before, right? I guess Arc Warden is a possibility for EG or TC plays that hero, but otherwise I expect these guys to like stick to the. I mean, we don't know the meta yet, but like what we expect the meta to be.
Yeah, certainly. I think safe to say in this first phase, going to be some Marcy Undying, contested at the very least. Perhaps that Enigma as well. But it's time, everyone. We are about to get started here with our very first draft on the A stream. Of course, 5 matches running simultaneously. You're joining here for the NA Bowl, basically between Sonics and Evil Geniuses. It's going to be a big one here. Again, last time these two teams met, it was of the utmost importance for EG. They did manage to get that 2-0 and then played some tiebreakers following that. See here how it goes this time around.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Queen.
I think we can expect like Shadowfiend rose more and more in popularity, so that's going to be a very contested hero, I believe. And with Shadowfiend being picked and like these long range like Lina heroes, like Sniper is getting more popular because he has even more range, right? There is no hero with more range than Sniper. So I'm wondering how this meta will shake out. Because earlier, like if you're seeing Quinn here, he's a very specialist type of player. He has a few heroes mid that I believe he plays better than like almost anyone else, which includes Leshrac, which I thought would be one of the stronger heroes. But then with these Shadowfiends and Linas being very popular, you don't feel as comfortable picking this Leshrac because they outrange him, right? Like you want to go in with Leshrac, and they just hit you in the face.
Yep.
So I'm curious to see how all of this will shake up. But you're right, Marcy and Dying, those are going to be very contested picks.
Yeah, of course. There's still a lot of games, a lot of ways that everyone can look to explore a little bit in this meta and see how things develop ahead of the main event, where of course things start going a little bit slower, and it's up to really what people will be. Yes, as we can see what the most contested heroes have been, especially in our earlier phases, with that Bat Rider especially being one that we haven't seen a whole lot of. You and I, at least personally, that's mostly because he does end up getting a ban or an unfavorable matchup in that mid lane.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it also, some teams are more comfortable, right? Like when you have an offlaner that really likes Bat, I think those teams, like Beast Coast, for example, right, with Whisper, then you're more likely to pick this hero. Maybe that will be true for EG. I think Nightfall, I'm actually not sure. But when you only play it in mid, right, you can feel a bit limited to picking it.
Jam 9 di sini, jam 10 di Singapura.
Surprised that Visage was so highly contested, actually.
Yeah, the hero didn't look super convincing anytime we got to catch him on one of our casts. Some of the times that was because they kind of drafted into a dual core or a tri-core, as we can see. Quinn eager to get this match started. Actually, the The anticipation, as you can see, definitely killing the ball. But yeah, no, it's certainly a hero that hasn't looked super amazing. I think the surprising hero for me, even though it is one of the more contested one, I think especially banned, has been that Faceless Void. You know, it's been something that's certainly strong in the laning phase, but certainly takes its time to get online. And on occasion also requires you to give it some a bit of more attention in the draft, right? Making sure that you have some early kill potential and early chrono, making sure that you have you know, a decent laning partner so he doesn't just get run down by something like a last pick Feno. So some of that has been, you know, also really surprising. But you know, where the meta is actually going to take us, only time will tell.
Yeah. Now Void received some nerfs, right? The Aghanim shard, so he doesn't jump as far. And also one of his problems, right, is this morphling. Like I talked to someone, I don't remember who, but like it even like showed me further how bad that matchup can be. Where yeah, before if you caught him in chrono, he couldn't morph. Now with Aghanim shard, he can just start morphing, and he has like 6k HP. And the second part is you really like going Aghanim Scepter on morphling. And then when you use that on Faceless Void, like you get his axe, right? So you get an AoE bash with his jump, and like overall that matchup is just not fun for Void. So that's also a reason why people don't pick him as much.
Of course. Just a bit of an update, by the way, as far as what we're still waiting for. Currently looking for a server at the moment. So if you've taken a peek at any of the players' PCs and seen them in queue, that means we're just waiting to get started here with our official server, Bulba, that is ready to go. Long time coach for EG, I think, having been with the roster since 2017. I'm sure ready to go and unleash the strats, the EG strats here, back onto their NA counterparts.
And you can also see the coach there for Sonics. It's
That's right.
Clairvoyance. He's new coach, but he's also old coach. So he's been coaching AG, their team in C Division 2, right? Yeah. They unfortunately didn't qualify for anything. They were trying for the regionals, but they didn't make it out. And he's actually their coach from TI7, I believe. He was there. So now he's back. He was there coaching, I think Mojo was on that team, Jawar was on that team, and Quinn was on that team. So those three are familiar with him.
Speaking of course, Quinn. He is one of very highly regarded to have been one of the most talented and highly skilled mid laners, especially back in the day for like the Kiev Major. The man just seemed to, like, he was on a mission to never lose any lane, despite the matchup, especially when he was given his kinds of heroes, like you say, the specialist, right? And when you do kind of specialize in maybe a couple of heroes or a smaller pool, and you dedicate yourself to that, that means you've probably played your fair share of bad matchups, and you know, maybe you've not gone so well in all those, but they're all learning experiences, essentially.
Yeah. No, so I would say his best heroes are Leshrac, Ember Spirit. Those are, I believe, his absolute two best. But then he obviously can play every other spirit. I don't know, he might be the best out of anyone. And he's also an extremely strong laner. In general, his only problem, what I remember playing with him back in TI9 was, and before was, back then, like there was this respect, right, for especially Sumail and no one, which I think sometimes could hinder a bit mentally. But I believe none of those players made it, so that's not going to be an issue.
That's true. As bright and early here in Singapore, of course, both teams in the player rooms, probably at least half an hour discussing things, just warming up the hands, right, in demo mode now. It's just a little bit of a break here as we're still waiting for our servers to get going. And then, of course, as soon as our draft is ready, we'll get that started for you right away. Yeah, of course, I think my most fond Quinn memory, of course, is going to be that picture of him when Gaben was on stage welcoming everyone to the International, and he's in the background with all the players. Just absolutely overjoyed. Hopefully we get to see another one of those here later on when the main event kicks off in the Suntech Arena. For now, of course, group stage, hotel, a little bit less pressure, less external pressure perhaps for these players in the hotel rooms, able to maybe focus a little bit more on their game. I think there are definitely some teams that have shown us that they certainly get a bit of a crowd buff Is that something that you think is still super prevalent here at TI? I mean, obviously we're in groups, no such crowd buff, but in group stages, or were there some players you played with perhaps that were a little bit more comfortable not having to hear the crowd on the outside?
It's possible. It's not something I ever talk to anyone about. Just there's though definitely a difference between playing like this in a hotel room where you practice. They got this hotel room a few days ago, so they've been getting comfortable here. They know this place. They've scrimmed from here. And then the difference is when you walk out on stage, you have to set up your stuff. You have 10 minutes, and then you just gotta play. And there's noise. There's like maybe the volume is not exactly right, like, things are a bit different. So there's a big difference. But the one thing you have to worry about here is, I guess you would call it adrenaline dump when you think you're about to play, and then this happens, right? A little delay. The server's not quite working, and then you were really hyped up, and now you might get tired. So you have to keep your emotions in check here, not get frustrated, not get too bored either. Like you can't get too relaxed. It's a bit of a challenge.
Cut into that shot back of Nightfall. No, I mean, I think these are all, no one here is a first timer, I believe, on these two teams. So I think they have a lot of their emotions in check, kind of knowing it's a long haul, right? It's a bit of a marathon, I imagine. By the end of the event, whether you're going to be out by group stage and have to play your more stressful matches immediately, or if you are going to be making, an exit in the playoffs, or maybe even going all the way, it's must be a lot of Dota to be playing here. I mean, these guys are already going to be playing 9 best of 2s here over the next couple of days, excluding any tiebreakers. And then, of course, the real high stakes begin from there. So kind of learning to pace yourself, I imagine, definitely being something that these guys as well have some experience with.
No, for sure. I'm just thinking about myself playing. I would usually do better the first few days, because my sleep would be terrible. So like the latter half of the group stage would be harder for me. Because as you said, it's a very long tournament. Because you've already been here, you have done photos, you've done interviews. Like you have to get up earlier. There's a lot of stuff going on, and then you have to start playing.
Yep. Yeah, and for many of these teams, of course, the preparation. I mean, as we alluded to in our kind of intro to the group stage, yes, it begins, basically the day or the week or the month right after TI ends, and you get back on the grind and form your teams and start, getting players and all that stuff. But even just for this specific tournaments, having been in Malaysia, I've been in contact with a couple of teams that have, been boot camping here, some of them for 2-3 weeks, a month. Since ESL One Genting, for example, before you just stayed here in Malaysia and preparing. And for some of these players, I mean, I just saw a post, the antipode of Lima, Peru is almost exactly Singapore. They're on the opposite side of the world, So some time to adjust, certainly, but at the end of the day, you're still in a very new setting and needing to settle down and just play your kind of Dota, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's usually not been the jet lag. So it's just that I prefer waking up really late and going to sleep really late. And these TI games, they start at 10 a.m. So you have to really reset your schedule. And that's some people struggle that more, and some, like this guy Fly, I don't think he struggles with this at all. He's probably up at 8 going to the gym.
Yes.
Maybe even 7.
Yes. He is an early riser, that's for sure. That's definitely for sure here. As we do have a new lobby up high, so just to make sure we all get settled in that one and ready to go. Yeah, I mean, speaking about Fly, he was working as talent over at the Stockholm Major. Was able to catch him a couple times for breakfast. And let me tell you, he was always ready to go to start his day bright and early, always probably the first one in the gym. Did retire early on in the night, of course, to keep up his schedule. But quite curiously enough, and I hope he doesn't mind if I share this, would bring his own avocados to tournaments, actually. Just to make sure he could kind of, still get the right kind of nutrients and get settled in. I think part of that, having that kind of routine and making sure you're always in your comfort zone, is definitely something that can help you excel, especially as a leader.
What's your
here on EG, but even just so as an individual on a player level, right? Making sure you're always at your A level.
Yes, I think especially it helps when you get older, because he's one of the older guys here now.
That's right.
And you get, like, it's easier to stay up longer when you're younger, right? So I think the schedule he keeps too, like, he improves his longevity a lot, like with how consistent he is. Like waking up, and like his mental state. If you ever play with him in pubs, it's very hard to make him tilt. Like he's very consistent. Like he doesn't get emotional.
Oh, lawan Boom juga ya. Langsung loh.
Different there, and there's a few teams like the old OGs, for example, that really shined on the main stage, but a lot of teams just don't play their best Dota when it comes to main stage TI Dota.
Yeah, you've got a couple of those
Oh
teams,
iya,
like
langsung ada 5 stream.
well, it feels like, where we've seen, you know, TI 6, 7, Fnatic, and TNC having those kind of lower bracket runs and knocking some of the really big gatekeeping teams out of there. Beast Coast, I'd probably throw in there as well. They've hit, like, you know, top 6 to 8 in the past couple of majors and looked pretty good when it comes to playoff time. Yep. It's always a fear, though. You know, the Beast Coast fans, they've got their hearts in their mouths and they're scared during group stage because they're always like one game away from being knocked out before they reach playoffs even.
Yeah, it's all fun being a Beast Coast fan. I mean, you get some highs. I mean, you talk about like their results this season. It's been fantastic for, I think, Beast Coast Dota. But that's some of the other teams we're about to be getting ourselves into this game. I know you guys watching have been waiting patiently. OG versus Boom Esports should be coming up soon. What are you looking forward to in this series, Gareth?
I think just to see the way OG plays, because it felt like pre-Arlington and during Arlington, they were the team that really set that meta of off-lane equals real carry. Yeah. You know, Amar is incredibly greedy, and a lot of teams tried to replicate that in some regard, whereas you had, you know, other teams, two off-laners playing the complete opposite. Yeah, I think honestly the real aggression that OG brings and the behind the scenes work that, you know, that Seb and No-Tail do to kind of captain and lead these players, it's been an exceptional journey from them.
Yeah. And I feel like when it comes to OG, like mental strength, they just seem to have an edge over almost everyone. I'm curious to see, because you talked about all these tournaments and the great results OG. It's something I touched upon a bit earlier when I was by myself. This is, you know, they're playing with Misha actually. You know, all these majors that they did really well at. They won a major. It was with Seb, so obviously for them that's like an upgrade. At least that's how they.
Misha cannot
their actual roster playing, not a stand-in. But you know, for viewers and fans, it's kind of like, you know, it's like finally we get to see the full OG. Are they going to be the same team then?
Yeah, I mean they had that ESL buff, right? They won Stockholm. They did very well. Yeah, winning ESL in Malaysia as well.
Is his playstyle, right? The games that we got to see him on the Enchantress over their 2-0 defeats over T1 in the upper bracket of last chance qualifier. Comes to mind, right? Just always in your face, always aggressive, just always kind of knowing what his hero can do and really stretching the limits of that. Has always made him a fan favorite and a joy to watch. But back to these two teams, Fly, flexing, getting ready because it is time here by Lidai. We have our first draft about to get started. Evil Geniuses and Sonics kicking us off here for the TI11 group stage. The NA Brother Bowl. Well, what would have been the Brother Bowl in maybe previous iterations, but the NA Bowl and the Brawl is what I meant to say here between the two, kicking off with Fata and Fly, respectively, drafting the helms of each team. It's going to be EG with last pick on Radiance and Sonics with first pick on Dire.
Okay. Oh, and of course, Enigma Band. Forgot about mentioning that hero. Yeah. Very annoying hero.
And a bit of a Nightfall classic now, hasn't it been? I think he was keen to be picking that one for a while over in NA before it was, you know, everyone's bread and butter Wraith Pact kind of builder. So there's Quinn getting ready to go. He's excited here.
Yeah. Now we finally get to begin. And then I do believe that Nightfall also plays a lot of Primal Beast. So I'm curious to see how the teams will, like if they'll ban him out, because we have both Marcy and Undying left here. So
that's right. Yeah, Evil Geniuses actually make the play to ban out the Morphling in the first phase.
Yeah.
So we're going to want to get rid of that one, perhaps. Well, I don't know. It's kind of interesting, right? Because generally, you know, just to give a little bit of more inside baseball, teams, when they go to majors, especially, or even some third-party events and lands, they will try not to scrim teams in their group, right? but we didn't know groups up until early last week or earlier this week, right? Even. So I do wonder if this is maybe a little bit of experience between EG and Sonics, who I'm sure have scrimmed each other throughout DPC, especially this last tour, but maybe even a little bit when they were both boot camping here in Malaysia and Singapore.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point actually, because usually you get kind of these scrim circles where there's a lot of teams going to TI, right? But you don't play all of them. Usually you play a lot, like 6 of them, you play them a lot, and then maybe sprinkle in some of the other teams. So there can be like different metas developing. Obviously we have a last chance qualifier now that everyone has been looking at, but that doesn't mean like those will be the final powerful heroes coming up.
Yep. Yeah, by no means is that an indication on the rest of the meta. As we can already see, the SF also receiving a first phase ban. You were talking about previously how that hero was making a much bigger rise in popularity. Of course, now you can still flex him in the mid lane for sure, but maybe I should say he's very commonly flexed to safe lane as a carry as well, and quite an annoying one at that, with his Ag Shard applying a fear. He can join fights early with Shadowblade, and the Requiem, of course, ginormous AoE that's going to apply a fear to break back lines or just really break apart a fight. He's certainly been a more prominent hero of the meta.
Yeah, there we see the Marcy.
Yeah, as EG, they banned Clockwork.
Yeah, I'm guessing Primal, yeah. So Primal is not a bad hero versus Marcy. A lot of things, because when Marcy wants to jump in, right, there's a lot of...
That drop, guys.
Like Primal be charging. Like when you're trying to leap around, like you just get knocked up in the air and you fall straight up on your butt, you know. And the other is when he uses his ultimate and starts smashing, wherever, like you're just getting mini-stunned. So all of mobility on Marcy kind of disappears.
Yeah, and even her unleash attack speed, right, is going to end up feeling a bit weaker. There it is.
Yeah.
Quinn picking the lash. He's going to tuck back the hair behind the ear, crack his knuckles, and get ready to satisfy some punks here on EG with that mid lane lash.
Nice. No, I really like this this pickup here, because they already banned Shadow Fiend, which I believe is a pretty strong hero versus Leshrac here, and then we'll see what he wants to get banned. I'm honestly kind of expecting like a sniper ban. That hero's getting more and more popular, and like playing against that range can be very annoying, but we'll see.
Lesh, of course, still going to be bringing you lots of positives to your draft. For Sonics, especially, I'm not sure if this is so much a flex for them, but generally this is a hero for some other teams, perhaps, that can be flexed into the safe lane. So you can kind of run him as a pseudo carry with a more like carry, like maybe TA sniper in the mid lane as your actual carry. But of course, for Sonics, you're likely mid, but still brings you, a nice mix of lane domination. Not the greatest ganker in the world, is I think maybe where he feels a bit weak unless enemies are really diving tier 1 tower, which is not unreasonable, right? Like it's an undying primal beast, that's a lane that can certainly dive you. But of course, he does really bring a lot of early tower pressure, depending how many points get actually dumped into Edict early on. So keeps the pick and keeps the draft fairly flexible as far as whatever Sonics are going to need.
No, true. Yabor definitely plays this hero as well, so it's not locked in on mid yet. But they are banning, like they want to play it mid, right? They are banning mid heroes. They're banning Volker Batrider, classic counters versus Leshrac. And I don't know, like being a good gank or not, like I would actually say he's not bad. Like when the mid laner says like, okay, Leshrac is running whatever, bottom top, you do get scared because he has runs at you, right? Activate his Pulse Nova, and that damage early game is a lot.
Yeah, bit punishing. Yeah, especially versus these tanky heroes, right? Like the Undying Primal. Like, he as long as he has a decent mana pool, or worst case scenario, if you see a Lesh running to your lane in Arcane Rune, God forbid.
Yeah, Arcane Rune haste. Those you cannot stop him.
Those are killers. Yeah, those are killers. So especially with a level advantage, yeah, he can definitely be punishing. He can be punishing. I always think about like your quaps, your spirits, especially as the gankers that, for me, always feel impossible to run against. But yeah, I know you're certainly right. With the right rune, or even just with a good level advantage, and maybe not a stun against him or a slow, yeah, not much you could do about him. At times, it feels like as EG, some on-meta bans here for sure, right? But they have purposefully allowed through the Undying and the Marcy. What was interesting is EG, of course, was second pick. By not banning one of these like super OP meta heroes, like with the exception of that Undying, they did get their hand at selecting their 2 favorite ones. So we have to assume that they really like this Undying Primal opener, I feel, right?
Yeah, I'm honestly though a little surprised that they let Marcy through. I don't think you had to. I guess they really wanted Undying or something, because that would be. I mean, or they would have, if Sonics would have first picked Undying, they were fine with Marcy. Because I don't know if you have to give up Marcy here to get Primal, but I guess they wanted to be sure. So then you give them the bait, the irresistible Marcy.
And we have seen a couple of Brood games, actually, in LCQs. My memory escapes me on exactly who played them or how they fared, but I do remember seeing the map covered in webs at some points when I was checking between all 4 streams that were running. Did EG go so far as to ban it here in this phase? Does that kind of open up any heroes for you, or are you scared of any heroes popping up if you were to draft against EG in this scenario?
I mean, generally, okay, so they banned it from Mirana. Maybe this will even be a Mirana mid. But usually Brood bans are for Death Prophet and Invoker, or the common heroes, or OD, where you don't want to play against this Brood Mother. But Mirana makes sense too. I'm actually curious. I want to see if this is going to be... Maybe it's just a crit Mirana, but Abed could also play this in the mid lane. It's not that bad.
Okay. That matchup until last playable, right? You've got the leap away in case he maybe is going to hit you with a split earth. Can be a little bit hard, right? Especially with lightning bolt to get him to get that Mirana, especially if she has leap charges. So I can see why that's maybe a good matchup there. As the Bane pick for Sonics. So some lane control, the ulti, of course, that's going to go through BKB, that channel. And sets you up for like a carry that might need a save, that might need just a big lane bully to help him through the laning stage as well.
It's also just very strong versus Primal Beast. Like even if he gets BKB, you can still grip him. So like he just wants to go in, right? And then if you get gripped, you're just stuck for 6 seconds, right? And Bane is also interesting with the Leshrac, because this allows him to be played easily as a position 1. But I do believe he's still mid. But we'll see.
Okay. Sonics, they still have a pick here if they want to go with Nightfall's hero and define one of their lanes here. They certainly have that option to continue flexing the Lesh into the final phase of picks. If they want to make EG's life a little bit more difficult to consider. What conditions that Bane has would you say are necessary for Lesh to be running as a safe lane? Or is it more dependent on what your mid lane is going to be if you can run this Lesh mid, or safe, sorry?
No, it's just this really simple like you can just sleep into snow, right? And Bane is a bit of a body, so he can cover hits and stuff to make it easier for him to play. But this also works out if Leshrac is mid, right? When you're contesting runes, you come with Bane, and you sleep the enemy mid, and then Leshrac gets to a free stun and kill him.
Yep. Certainly going to be a bit scary as well to deal with, especially if you have the liberty now with this Magnus pick to free the Marcy up for something like those 6 or 8 minute power runes, which are usually very consequential and maybe even snowbally for some mid lane performances. Marcy as well, another great hero out rotating into the mid lane. Can jump in usually from fog. We've seen that in like a couple of Visage sniper matchups, right, where everyone wants to stand as far as away from each other. Marcy does really pop that bubble. With this Magnus pick, though, are you expecting this to be like a melee carry still to come in to take advantage of that Empower cleave? Or is this about just the repositioning or something else for Mag?
No, you probably want some hero that benefits from Empower. I'm just curious to see what EG are going to... I'm expecting Artesis here to be picked here. It's time to pick the carry. But already, even before you pick the carry, you have this Undying, right? And presumably, it's Marcy, Magnus offlane. So, yeah, Drow Ranger. So, I feel like there's like a very easy farm for him in this lane. Seems like a very free lane with a very farmed Drow Ranger. So, I'm curious to see what Sonics will do about this.
Yeah, their gap close limited to this Marcy Magnus and that offlane, but as you say, I think their start going to be a bit stymied by the strength of this hero. Especially, mainly just Undying, I guess, right? Undying is going to be almost able to 1v2 in this lane, just has to make sure that he's not skewered and disposed under tower, and he likely 1v2s just fine.
No, exactly.
Such as the strength of this hero right now.
I mean, maybe they're thinking of putting the Bane as position 4, but even then, like Undying is just so strong, so it should be a really farm draw.
Like it's a heads up ban there. We talked about the setup, right, that Bane can enable, and I think there are almost none as punishing as this Blood Right pure damage combo in the lane with Nightmare. That one can be really, really brutal to deal with for almost any kind of offlane.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the same idea script. You just rupture this Primal Beast and use the standard. But yeah, I don't know, it's not really a necessary ban. I think EG, they're feeling really good right now about what they have, and like me, I think they're a bit confused to what Sonics can pick here to like feel really good.
What are the concerns that you feel like Sonics needs to address? Like, what makes it so difficult right now, as far as what you're seeing in this draft?
I mean, right now, for me, it's mostly their offlane, which, like, no, it's just I mean, the offlane and like you look at the Drow, like the Drow as a hero is very strong here, and it seems like she will have a very nice lane. And that.
What?
The Draugr goes from tower to lowest to tower, right? And you do whatever you want.
I think for Sonics then to maybe look to put a bit more tempo in their lineup might be able to help. Is what you're thinking, to cover that Magnus early, or how can they look to take steps to address this then? Kind of safe laner likely would they need to pick, or mid, right, if they want to.
Yeah, I mean, like a PA is the like easy answer, right? Really good with Empower. You can blink on top of this Drow Ranger. It's not as strong in lane, so maybe you're making yourself a bit weak there. I mean, otherwise, as you said, you can go like an Ursa, so you're faster. Because if the Bane and Marcy gets to roam, okay, they go for Jug. You can't kill this Drow, even though if she's pretty good, like Marcy gets to jump on her, you just bully her. But yeah.
Okay, with that Juggernaut pick, what do you feel like? Is this going to help address a little bit of those concerns against this Drow Ranger, or?
No, not at all. I feel. I'm really curious how they will lane this. If they will do position for Marcy, because I would not feel comfortable with that. Marcy Magnus versus Undying Drow. That just seems like a very hard lane. I mean, obviously you have a Quinn Letrak mid here that should have a really good game. So maybe if he gets a few good runes, he can like kickstart this game.
Those look like, at least Sonics, from their perspective, looking at their last two bans, they perhaps expect this Mirana to be mid, as they actually ban a couple of offlaners, or maybe offlaners. Viper's not really played support too much these days. Well, we'll see here what EG are going to go with. It is going to be the Beastmaster, so a little bit more push and map control from EG with this last kind of hero.
Okay, yeah, so now I'm wondering, never mind, it's Primal Beast mid.
Oh, okay, for Abed, so it is going to be the crit Mirana.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. I'm curious to who will play the Marcy, Fata or Mojo. Let's see. EJ here. The mid lane, yeah, Leshek should farm fine. I wonder who this matchup, because yeah, I see them both. They both should just be farming. Like Primal Beast just has way too much HP, right, for Leshek to really threaten to kill him. And yeah, the Primal Beast can't really kill the Leshek either, right? Except when he hits level 6 and the Mirana rotates.
Itu emang foto doang
Well, I look at the Sonic strat. I see a Magnus, he's a farm enabler with a melee hero. Yawar on the Juggernaut, someone who definitely take advantage of it. But certainly that offlane will be looking difficult for Lelis, for Leslau. Are we going to be looking perhaps for some keen rotations over to the mid lane, especially around power rune timings, like you were mentioning, to try and set up for a kill onto this Primal? Is that where maybe Quinn can do a little bit of lifting here for the team in the early game?
Yeah, no, I feel like Sonics need to they need to rotate their supports to mess up these lanes and make it weird. And they do have very good supports to do that. Both Marcy and Bane are very good at rotating early to set up kills, gank. And I think they'll need to do that. I hope also that Quinn thinks about rotating to the Beastmaster lane, not let him get that tower at 7 minutes or whatever. Like make it hard for him to play. Like you have the Bane ready there to set up, then you can either keep in with the Leshrac or run there.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
I
like the
hope
sound
they'll
of
do
that.
something like that.
Break apart the pace of the game a little bit here, as it's going to be game 1 between Evil Geniuses and Sonics. The last meeting back in July over in the US East region. Now over to Singapore. A little bit more on the line here. Best of 2 series